All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're going to unpack the core ideas from a really fascinating 1982 sermon by Sun Myung Moon. It basically builds this whole universal framework for understanding good, evil, and, what it really means to be victorious in life.
So right out of the gate, the sermon hits you with a super direct question. And it's not just for show. It's the launch pad for the entire argument. Just think about it for a second. How would you answer that? With total confidence? Or maybe with a little hesitation?
And you know that little hesitation you might have? Well, the sermon actually uses that as Exhibit A for its main point. The idea is that our half-hearted answer kind of reveals a fundamental truth about us, that we're in this constant struggle between our good nature and all the tough situations life throws at us.
Okay, so if we were created to be good, why does life feel like such a struggle all the time? What went wrong? Well, the sermon offers a very specific diagnosis. It frames the problem not as just some simple mistake, but as a kind of spiritual poison.
According to the sermon, our original good human nature got corrupted. And this corruption is described as two injections that basically altered our spiritual DNA and sent history down a completely different path.
So what are these two injections? Well, here they are. The first is self-centeredness, that impulse to put yourself ahead of the whole, ahead of everyone else. And the second is something called false love, which is what happens when you act on that self-centered mindset. According to the sermon, these two things are the real root cause of evil.
The sermon lays it out as a clear sequence of events, kind of like a domino effect. It starts with us in an original state of goodness. Then, that gets corrupted by an injection of self-centeredness. This leads humanity down the path of false love, and that creates a cycle of evil that, the text argues, has just been circulating through history ever since. Okay, so this is the absolute key point. According to the sermon, the only thing that separates true love from false love is this idea of order. True love follows a natural hierarchy with God at the center, and it benefits everybody. False love just ignores that order, becomes totally self-serving, and, well, ends up being destructive.
Right, so if the poison is all about violating order, it makes sense that the antidote has to be, you guess it, restoring that order. And this brings us to the sermon's central idea and its proposed solution, a universal law that governs literally everything.
The concept itself is actually super simple. It's just orderliness. It's the principle that everything in the universe has a proper place and a proper sequence. First things have to come first. It sounds basic, right? But the sermon argues this has massive implications for how we think about morality.
And get this quote. It really shows you just how central this principle is. In this way of thinking, evil isn't just about causing harm. It's more fundamental. It's defined as anything that actively tries to destroy the natural, correct order of things.
Now we're taking this idea and blowing it up to a cosmic level. The sermon claims that the one massive difference between God and Satan boils down to this exact principle. God submits to and upholds the universal law of order. Satan's primary sin, in this view, was to reject that order by trying to put himself above it. I know. This is all getting a little abstract. So to bring it back down to earth and make it easier to grasp, the sermon uses a few simple everyday analogies.
First up, the family. The sermon talks about a natural order, where parents come before children. Now, this isn't presented as some kind of blind authority. The text makes sure to say parents have to be reasonable, but it's a structure that helps maintain harmony in the family.
Here's another great example that really makes you think. A knife. A knife isn't inherently good or evil, right? Its value depends entirely on its context, on its place within the proper order of things. In the hands of a responsible teenager, it's a useful tool. But in the hands of a 3-year-old, it's a danger. See? Order and context are everything.
And for the last one, let's talk about a restaurant. This one's all about the relationship between the individual and the group. An individual's desire, like, say, not wanting to wear a tie, sometimes has to take a back seat to the established order of the whole, in this case, the restaurant's dress code, to maintain a certain standard for everyone. The well-being of the whole comes first.
So then, the sermon takes this principle and applies it to, well, the whole world. It argues that you can actually judge nations by whether or not they follow what it calls the right order of creation. In this framework, systems that put spiritual values first are seen as following the correct order. The sermon then goes on to specifically identify systems like communism as violating this order because they prioritize materialism, and therefore, from this specific perspective, they are categorized as evil.
Okay, so we've got the problem, we've got the solution, we've got the real-world examples. Now the sermon ties it all together to define what it really means to be a victorious person.
And this is really the bottom line, the big takeaway. The victorious person is someone who always respects the order of the whole, even if it means taking a personal loss in the short term. The defeated person, on the other hand, might snatch a quick victory by breaking the rules and violating that order, but because they're acting against this fundamental law, they're ultimately going to be the loser in the end. So this whole philosophy, built completely on this one idea of order, leaves us with a pretty critical question, doesn't it? And so we'll leave you with this to think about. How does any society find the right balance between the needs and freedoms of the individual and the order of the whole?